Hello, everybody, and welcome to this live discussion here on LinkedIn, live on YouTube. Joining me today, we've got an amazing friend of mine, and we're going to go from chaos to compliance and talk all about all things cloud security. So, without further ado, let me just press the buttons, wind up the handles, and welcome our guest for today, Najam. So for those who haven't met me before, my name's Laura Balmain. I'm the CEO and founder here at SafeStack, and I'm an AppSec Chaos Monkey. And it's my absolute pleasure to have Najam joining me today. Would you like to introduce yourself? Who are you? Why are you here today?
Sure. Hi, Laura. Thank you for having me on this podcast. So, my name is Najam Saqib, and I have been in the security industry for four and a half years now. I started off as a developer, then transitioned to application security engineer. I have done some bug bounty hunting as well, found security bugs in private organizations, United States Department of Defense, etc. Done some CTFs, and these days, I have just recently resigned from my full time job
Yay!
thingy and just started my own cybersecurity services agency with the name of Exfiltra.
That's amazing. Look, I absolutely love it when somebody takes that big leap and starts
Thank
their
you.
own thing. So kudos and congratulations on that. And what an adventure, 4 years, and you've done so many different things. I have many questions, but we need to keep focused on track. So maybe we're going to have a talk another day about all of those other wonderful adventures. Um, so from the perspective of what we're going to talk about today, we've got a whole bunch of questions to get through. But if you are watching us live, if you're joining us from home or the office, wherever you happen to be right now, and you do have questions, feel free to send them in. We would love to hear from you. And if not, what I'm going to do is, I'll be honest with you, team, the cloud moves fast. I do a lot of application security, but I was counting the other day, and in 1 week alone, I was touching 3 different cloud platforms and 8 different programming languages. And I don't think that's particularly healthy. So I'm really excited today to have someone with me who knows more than I do and is going to help us all, me included, find our feet with cloud security. So I'm going to start with kind of a fun question, if you will. What is the scariest thing that you typically find when you first look at a company's cloud setup? I'm asking for a friend because, I've got to look at my own setup in a minute as well. So, what are the scary things? Where are the monsters?
There are many scary findings when I do cloud security audits. People do believe that exposed or public S3 buckets or storage accounts is one of them. But with the passage of time, awareness is being rising as far as the public exposure of storage accounts is concerned. So, and also, it is easy to detect. So,
Mm.
since I do not disagree with it that it is a common attack vector and uh, data does get breached when you disclose your storage accounts publicly. But if you ask me that what is the scariest thing, so it's not the exposed storage accounts. In my practice, I have seen that high privileged identities like service
Mm.
principal and managed identities in cloud or IAM roles assigned to service principals. This is the most scariest thing. Now, how is it scariest? The thing is that once you give highest privilege to a service principal, the reason that service principal is used is for communicating your external application with your cloud. So what I have seen in my practice is that people give access some like honor or contributor role to the service principal, and they said at the end of the day only the application is going to communicate with the cloud, so there is no risk that application can do something wrong. But
Mm.
you are exposing your service principal's secrets to the external application, which means that anyone who can access the those secrets, those that application actually can access those secrets. And once someone has access to those secrets, it means that he is the owner of your cloud account. So uh, in the case of storage accounts, the worst that can happen is the exposure of sensitive data, maybe some health data or some card data. Maybe I don't think so that someone will be storing a credit card in storage accounts, but but
No,
but
please
but
don't.
that
It's too early in the day for those kind of horror stories.
yeah, but that's the worst case scenario. Whereas with exposure of service principal, high privilege service principals or managed identities, your complete cloud account can get compromised. The attacker can do anything,
Mm,
and the thing that makes it worst is that it is hard to detect if you haven't been auditing your trail logs or activity
mm,
logs. It is really hard to detect. An attacker can come in, and what you will see in the logs is that your application is doing something, and it gets overlooked very easily, that okay, this is a known application, this is a false positive, okay, we know this application, whereas in reality attacker may be moving literally in your environment.
mm.
So this is the scariest thing.
Yeah, and look, if I pull this back to, I'm not a cloud security expert. So if I pull this back to my experience in AppSec, we see this all the time when people build internal applications. It's okay because my application is only talking to another internal application, so it's safe. Um, but by sharing those privileges and having such a powerful role, you're really exposing things to massive amounts of risk. And you're right about the audit as well. So if we think about this, how many of us really look at a fine grain as to everything those service accounts are doing? Um, so if this is the horror story, just to kind of, before we go into the next question, what should people be doing instead?
Actually, the thing that people should do is auditing their service principals or service accounts regularly. You should actually, what I actually see in the wild is that the cloud team created the service account, and it has never expiring
Yeah.
tokens and secrets associated to them. So one thing that they are doing is that they are never rotating the secrets, which is obviously a horrible thing to do. You should be rotating the secrets regularly depending on the severity of your application.
Yeah.
And second thing, never ever give high privilege roles to service accounts. This is the sweetest spot an attacker can get. Expose
Hmm.
service account credentials having honor or contributor role. You are done and dusted if those secrets gets compromised, or even if the application is malicious. So there's no single silver bullet that you should do. Just audit the applications, the service accounts, uh, give least privilege principle to your service accounts, and there should be, obviously that gets covered in the auditing part, but there should be logging enabled on all your
Mm,
activities happening in the cloud. You need to do it manually, and the fact that you need to audit it manually is the reason why um, it gets overlooked very easily, because CSPM, cloud security posture management tools, will start screaming that hey, your storage account or S3 bucket is public, and it has anonymous access enabled. But this is the thing that you have to configure manually if you need to
mm.
monitor.
That's really interesting. And I think that's also a really good reflection of where we're at with security tooling, where the tools will be very loud about very what we call low-hanging fruit. So
Yeah.
easy to identify vulnerabilities. But when it gets into, business logic or these granular choices we're making, the tools can't always help us. So great thing to call out there.
Also, one
So
thing I would like
yeah.
to add here before we move to the next question is the fact that you talked about that internal application. So most of the time there's no security or no scrutiny at all on the application integration because it is internal. So
Mm,
I think this is a very bad misconception or whatever you can say it, but you shouldn't treat the application, you shouldn't just whitelist the application because it is internal. Those can be very easy targets for the attackers, and insider threat is a thing. Even if you say that hey, we are a small team, we trust our employees or whatever, so their machines can get infected. Supply chain
mhm,
attacks are very common these days. So horrible things can happen in infinite ways. So do not
mm.
trust the application because it is internal.
Yeah, in all honesty, I find that like embracing this zero trust, so trust nothing, it's actually the easiest path. I'm quite a lazy person. And so, actually, if I say I'm not going to trust everything, I'll just verify. I'm going to scrutinize this and audit it. I'm saving myself a lot of energy. So maybe we can all be a bit more lazy and actually just don't trust it. All
Agree.
right, let's move on to the next question. So, how do you catch bad infrastructure code before it deploys? Because that's a nightmare, right? Code deploys, yay, it did a job, but actually, this is not great to start with. So, what do we need to do?
Before we hop on to infrastructure as code, um, I have been working and I had worked with clients in the past uh, that just relied on ClickOps. They just asked the cloud admin or the developer, hey, we need a virtual machine, we need an EC2 instance. The developer or the cloud admin will go forward, open the portal, open the console, and create it manually. In that way, they do not really keep track of what is being created. It is not scalable. They cannot roll back or whatever. So even to the fact that there was an account having a monthly billing of $50,000, and they do not had single line of infrastructure as code. They were just relying on click ops from their developers. So this is the first advice that I would like to give here, that when you are starting small, you should start with infrastructure as code. It just makes your life a lot easier later. And
Mm.
later you go in the software development life cycle, it just becomes difficult to integrate IAC into your SDLC. Okay, so how do you identify that the bad patterns or bad architecture in infrastructure as code? So there are many languages like Terraform or Bicep, etc.,
Mm.
for IAC. There are phased approaches to it. First of all, you should, I think this goes without saying, but you shouldn't allow anyone to push code directly into the main branch. Second thing, you should be, validating the PRs. So now, what I did recently for an organization is that there were phased checks in the pipeline. First of all, it lints the code. Uh, the Terraform has its own method, Bicep has its own method to do this job. So an action runs that lints the code. For
Mm.
example, it identifies code smells like unused variables or useless dependencies, etc. Once the linting is done, then you need to validate it. And again, this method is available in all IAC languages. You need to validate it, and there is a term in Bicep. I don't know about Terraform, but it is an argument with the name of what if. So what it does is that it dry runs the code and
Mm.
tells you in the output that what will happen when this code will be executed. Like these resources will be deleted, new resources will be added. So you can just dry run it. And third is Chekhov. Chekhov is an open source tool that you can integrate into your pipeline, into your PR checks. It scans your ISC code for vulnerabilities, for vulnerable patterns, and for secrets in your ISC if you have disclosed any. So these are a couple of checks that you should definitely do. These can be integrated in pre-commit checks as well. You should definitely do before merging a PR into your ISC code base. Okay, so everything is green, everything passed. This doesn't mean that you are ready to merge. Just hold on. So, a human eye, a cloud architect, a person having a decent enough idea of your cloud service provider should review the code. You can't
Mm.
just rely on the tool set. He or she will review the code and will tell you whether or not you are following the best practices. Is this the right way to approach cloud architecture? Or could you have done this in a better way in using some best practice? So this is the
Mm.
last step one should get, and obviously the PR author shouldn't be the reviewer as well. So at that check as well, a neutral mind will review the code, and once the PR is approved, you are good to merge. This is the phased approach. I think it might sound complicated, but first 3 to 4 checks are just automated checks done by the pipeline, done in the pipeline and the GitHub
Mm.
Actions or in Azure DevOps. But last step is the PR review, and this will ensure that you are not committing bad architecture or bad code into your IAC.
Mm. I love this because what you're saying is that the majority of the checks you can set up to be on pre-commit. So the robots are going to do this for us. And that's Awesome. I think one of the things sometimes we miss with security tooling is how much more efficient we can be if all of those basic checks that humans aren't good at doing manually because we're not very consistent, if they're done for us, we can then focus those PRs, those pull request reviews, on that really like fine grain. Okay, let me take a real look at what this is doing. That's awesome.
Exactly.
So if we move from the kind of the infrastructure as code, which is going to be building that nice setup for us, to more like that defense in depth approach of how once we've got our things into things like AWS or Azure, that we're trying to build those layered controls out. What are your non-negotiables for security when you're setting up an AWS setup or Azure?
I don't think so that there will be a huge difference when we are talking about defense in depth if we compare on-prem with cloud. Obviously,
Mm,
there's the shared responsibility model, but it's not completely different here on cloud. So, defense in depth, as the statement states, you put out multiple layers of security. First of all, start off with the network perimeter. This is the perimeter that was the only that used to be the only layer of security in past days, but go not those days. You have defense in depth. You start off with web application firewall or security rules, etc. So you add some firewalls in the network perimeter. Excuse me. And then you come inside, you have some workloads here. You make sure that those before even before that, there are multiple workloads running in your cloud environment. So make sure that those are segregated in different subnets, and that's covered in the network security. And when you come at the workload level, you need to make sure that the workloads are patched and they are running the latest images, they are not running
mm,
vulnerable software, etc. And if you go even deeper, you need to make sure that the identities assigned to those workloads have the least privileges assigned to them. They are not overprivileged, and only the person who needs access to the resource has access to the resource, none other than that. And then you come at the monitoring and logging layer, where you need to make sure that anything and everything happening is being logged and is being monitored in the form of like in same solution, or there is a central space where everything is going. Like in the case of Azure, you have activity logs enabled, you have diagnostic logs enabled, and they are being sent in the log analytics workspace, so that if something goes south, you can go back to log analytics workspace and see what happened there. So this is just a phased approach. As I
mm,
mentioned, it's not very different from on-prem, but the only difference is that you utilize cloud services like WAF,
mm.
Firepower, and logging for you use logs of cloud. So this is how defense in depth happens in Azure or AWS or GCP even.
I think for some of the people who might be watching, particularly those who, maybe you're in an SRE role or you're in a DevOps role where you didn't necessarily have the networking background, so you didn't start off in networking and move to the cloud like some of us older folks did. Um, some of these things, it might be a nice reminder that we've actually been doing this for a long time. So if you are starting out in the space and you're looking at your defense in depth, then it's a good excuse to just look at some of the older guidance out there. Just because it's older and from on-prem, it doesn't mean it's not going to apply. It just means you might have to do it slightly differently in terms of which parts of the infrastructure that you're turning on or what the services are called, that kind of thing. So you did mention, though, one of my worst nightmares. You talked about IAM. Firstly, what is IAM? Because I am mildly allergic to acronyms. And secondly, how on earth do we make this work when me, as an engineer, I'm quite lazy and I like to go fast. And if you're going to lock down all of my permissions, I'm going to get a bit upset. So, how do we really make this work?
So IAM is identity and access management. In short, just the roles you give to users in your cloud environment. And this is the most, if not most, but one of the most difficult concepts to handle in cloud security, because this is where you need to tackle with teams. And I think this is more of a culture thing. If you're just starting out, again, one of my clients said to me that, hey, we are just starting out, we trust our employees, we are just 3 to 4 people, That's why we have given them contributor role or honor role or admin role or whatever.
Mm.
So if you're just starting out and 5 years to 7 years down the lane, those resources and the new ones that you have hired are now habitual of those admin privileges. So if you take those privileges away, they are definitely going to scream. They will say that we can't do anything at all without
Mm.
these rules. It is not possible for us to even
I may
take.
have been guilty of this at least once in my life.
Yeah, actually, I had a lot of heated debates with uh, such developers that they said, "Hey, we can't do anything. We need that admin role on the entire account. Otherwise, we aren't able to do anything." And at the end of the day, we had to give them the role because the delivery of software was being heard, and
Mm.
the upper management didn't care about least privilege principle back then. So now what should you do? You didn't The ideal scenario is that if you are starting out, just start with least privilege principle in your organization. But hey, Najam, we didn't practice least privilege principle at all in the beginning. So what should we do? Instead of waking up one day and taking away all the privileges,
Just all gone. Just
yeah,
in one go.
yeah, don't do this. It's just gonna make the situation worse for you. Take it in a phased approach. Like if for example, if one of your developer is working on a web app, so he definitely don't need access to the log analytics workspace or the cloud formation resource. So just give you first need to have a chat with the developer. Ask him that, hey, what is your responsibility, what is your job description? Okay, you need to deploy source code on this web application, you need to test it. Okay, I'm giving you entire admin access on this web application and only this web application.
Mm.
So make the access restricted on the specific resource. What happens is that they have given the honor access on the entire account. Okay, just put this away, give the honor access just on the web app resource or the EC2 instance. And this is how you will take the privileges away without even hurting their day-to-day job. And later in the stage you can say that, hey, he doesn't need on a role on the EC2 instance, he just need to test the web application. So you can just maybe fine grain the roles with the passage of time. But this is how, take baby steps. Otherwise you are just going to hurt yourself.
Mm. Sounds sensible because I have definitely been very wrong, but very opinionated when people have tried to change permissions at a later date. I know the theory. I know in my heart that it's the right thing to do, but sometimes it's a bit of a bitter pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Speaking of things that also cause me amounts of pain in various ways, we can't talk about cloud and security if we're not going to talk about encryption and key management and secrets, all of those wonderful things that sounds really simple when we come to talk about it to start with, and then we start to realize how complex it can get. So, how would you approach setting up encryption and key management to make that balance between it working properly and not annoying everyone who's using it, also that they don't work around it?
Makes sense. Okay, so as for key management, so I should have said this in the beginning of this podcast, but people do have, even in this day and age, people do have a myth that cloud is secure by default. I had have some conversations with the teams. They said that, hey, our app is not vulnerable because it is hosted on AWS, because it is hosted on Azure. So they believe that cloud is secure and they do not need to do anything. So this is absolutely wrong mindset. um, Unfortunately, only when they get breached, they start blaming cloud. They create tickets with the cloud that, hey, this happened to us, you were responsible for the security of our app. And then they realize that, hey, there's a shared responsibility model. Cloud is not responsible for everything. You need to patch your apps, you need to manage your
Mm,
encryption, you need to manage your keys. So this is the first and foremost thing we need to understand, the shared responsibility model, which varies from AWS to Azure and GCP and other cloud vendors.
mm,
Second, I think this is security 101, that you shouldn't be hard coding keys in your source code. So if you are, just you try to utilize environment files, put your credentials in the environment files. I think this is the first start that you need to take. Second, in cloud, there are multiple options now we have in cloud. In cloud, if even if you create an environment file and your environment file contains the a database connection string and the
Hmm.
storage accounts or whatever secrets, tokens, blah blah blah, then you need some way to share those environment files among the teams. And what happens normally is developers sharing those environment variables and environment files over Slack or IAM. Again, a criminal thing to do. So why not just
Sorry.
in the application
Yeah.
security world, it's a
Everyone
crime.
listening, you should feel bad. Feel bad, audience.
Just kidding. Okay, so just get rid of those environment files. Use Key Vault, use HSM, use KMS. These are the technologies in AWS. So how does this work? You just put those secrets in these cloud services, Key Vault or KMS, and then your app fetches those secrets. Since your application at the end of the day is running on cloud, on EC2 or a web app or function app or whatever, so it can fetch the secrets from Key Vault or KMS. So keep those secrets in the KMS or Key Vault, and you won't be you do not really need to manage the secrets at all. Then you are not pushing to the Git repo. You do not have to manage environment files. All your secrets are stored safely in the Key Vault. Now, one step forward, one thing that I would like to mention here that I talked about in the beginning is the managed identities, the usage of IAM linked roles in AWS or Azure. If your web app and your so web app and normally has to communicate with the storage account, a web app has to communicate with a SQL server. So
Mm,
if and in normal cases your web app and SQL server are both running on the same cloud account.
mm,
So since both of them are running on the same account, then you do not even need the database connection string. You can use managed identities because both of those are in the same Azure boundary. You just need
mm,
to enable managed identities, and they will communicate with each other without even having a connection string. And you no need to manage secrets, no need to put secrets even in Key Vault. So this will only work when both of the resources are on the same platform. But what if, Najam, our application needs to communicate with the Twilio API or the SendGrid API or the
mm,
ABC API? So these are out of the cloud platform. So for those, you need to manage the secrets or the API keys, and for those, you can use the Key Vault. If the
mm,
so the rule of thumb, if both the platform, if both the resources are on the same platform, use managed identities in Azure or IAM linked roles, service roles in AWS. If one of the resource that you need to communicate with is outside your cloud platform, then just put the API key in the Key Vault or KMS.
mm. This is really awesome and it's really practical. So I love this. And what I feel like I should be doing now as my first step to give myself some homework, perhaps the audience out there might do the same, is to really draw out what you're connecting to. And use one of those trust boundaries. So, create a circle, if you will, and put the things inside your account that you control or inside that same instance, and the things that are outsourced or third party outside. And if it crosses that line, it goes outside that circle, that's when we're wanting our key vault. And if it's inside the
Absolutely.
circle, we can be using those internal resources. And this, if you are migrating from traditional networking, this is one of the big changes from a more traditional on-prem where it doesn't have that idea of the shared accesses and the shared accounts, all those services being able to connect to each other.
Yeah.
Awesome. I've got so much to do after this. Right, one last question. I'm going to use that last 5 minutes really well. So we've done all of those beautiful things that you've laid out for us. So we've talked about our IAM. We've looked at defense in depth and those layers that you laid out for us of what we could do. We've looked at infrastructure as code, a little bit about encryption. We've had a really great wander around this today. But let's imagine those complex scenarios where we're over multiple regions, or multiple accounts. How do we manage it when we're in that kind of situation? How can you identify things going wrong when it gets complicated?
Yeah, so organizations often have hybrid cloud environments or multi-cloud environments. So for those cases, you just need to make sure that you are using some tool set that centralizes the data in a central location, in a CSPM, Cloud Security Posture Management tool. For example,
Mm,
Defender for Cloud integrates with GCP and integrates with AWS. So this is a central tool. If you have multiple AWS accounts, or if you have Azure multiple subscriptions and tenants and whatnot, you can integrate all of them into a CSPM tool of your choice, and there you can see how is your uh, cloud infrastructure performing, what is being exposed, what do you need to protect. And also, SIM is the thing that you should definitely utilize. Combine all the logs from multi-cloud and hybrid cloud environments into a central SIM solution and configure monitoring on it. I think it can't be more simple than that.
mm. And what I like about that is I'm a firm believer that security tools aren't magic. They're actually really just a way of making us more productive and efficient. And this is one of those cases where you've got complexity. Yes, you could do these things by hand, you could do them manually, but when you get to a complex situation, getting the right tooling in to bring it all together so that you can see things in one place is going to be incredibly powerful.
Yeah, the
Wonderful.
problem happens is that when people believe that the tool will do the job for them, they will spend thousands of dollars on the tooling, and they are assuming that, hey, we got the tooling, now we are secure. No, tool is just here to make you productive. It will give you the data that can take you hours, if not days, to scrape manually, and
Mm.
you need to do the action. I know AI is the buzzword, but we are not there yet that AI or the tool will secure everything for you.
No, absolutely not. And I saw a wonderful quote about the AI thing the other day from an engineer who'd been using it to try and to create some infrastructure and application just to see what it was doing. And he said, yes, you can build something, but I also realized in the process that preschool teachers don't get paid enough because looking after AI is a lot like looking after a small child. You have to be
Yeah.
very, very diligent to make sure it's doing actually what you said you want it to do, rather than just getting distracted and going to do something else. Um, oh, there's so much wonderful stuff here for us to go and look at and to think about. So if you are in the cloud space, come and rewatch this, take some notes, dive in, and at least tackle one of those pieces. Now, how can our listeners, our watchers at home, connect with you um, and get more information? You know so much about this space. I'd love for them to connect with you further.
Sure, I'm a very active LinkedIn user, so we'll put the LinkedIn link in the chat, and you can just ping me on LinkedIn.
Amazing. Awesome. Thank you so much for all of your insight and knowledge today. This has been a lot of fun. I only felt bad about my choices once or twice, as you know, I am a little bit addicted to having too many permissions, but aren't we all? So maybe after all of this, we'll all be a little bit more secure in our cloud environments. And I would love to have you back another day. We'll nerd out again because this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Bye.
Awesome. Look, I've been Laura. This has been fun. As always, if you want to find out more about our guests, about myself, about SafeStack, about Exfiltra, please follow up with us afterwards. We love sharing our knowledge, but we also do amazing things that could help you and your company wherever you are in the world. So don't be shy. And if you've got any suggestions for a future session, please do let us know because we would love to have other guests and to go nerdy and deep on all sorts of application security and cloud security topics. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.